Good morning, everyone. Amen. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
This morning I actually read yesterday's and today's reading, and I did that because this week, just like Palms weekend, right? So this is right at the front side of Great Lent. The Saturday and Sunday readings go together. They're actually a run-on. One follows the other. And so Matthew chapter 6, verse 1 forward, basically. And it's in two sections, one for Saturday, one for Sunday, because when they did this, people were coming to church like 4 times a week, right? On a regular basis. You know, especially in these, we're developed in Christian cultures where everybody gave you the day off of work to go to church, right? They're like, okay, everybody, no work today, we're all going to church. Right? See you in church, right? But since we don't have that today, and we don't have, like, we all are walking distance from the church. I read both of them today because it does, the one doesn't fit. Message does not fit without the other. It's a continuous message. At the end of this message, Christ tells us that we're not to lay up our treasure on earth where moth can destroy paper money, right? Thieves can steal harder money, gold, silver, other valuable things. And Christ tells us that we're to invest in His kingdom. Because where we put our money, there will our heart be also. That's literally the end of the reading. Now the whole reading starts about giving alms. And there are many forms of alms, right? But alms, otherwise known as works of mercy, right? Works of love, or charity, right? Which is the Old English word for love, for agape love, God's all-embracing love, right? And that's the first thing Christ mentions we need to do. And then the second duty that we need to do is prayer. And then the third duty we need to do is fasting that He lists. And you'll notice it's all a continuum. So I'm here to tell you, if you fast this week and you don't pray along with it, you're going to get in real trouble. I'm just telling you. Prayer better be accompanying it. Because otherwise, diabolical forces and our mind itself, our fallen minds are duplicitous against us. Our wills are duplicitous against us, void of God. So if we don't have prayer in there, I'm telling you, not good. They must go together this week. So today we actually have the remembrance of, here in the tetrapod, we see the expulsion of Adam and Eve from the garden. That's always the commemoration, one of the things we remember on this Sunday of forgiveness, as we begin to engage in the great fast, reset, to restore our spiritual lives. See, the church goes back and forth. You'll notice the church lets us indulge. There's feast periods, and then there's fasting periods. And it goes back and forth because, again, our hearts are duplicitous against this, right? Because self-serving ultimately serves the devil. It's the enemy of God. We're the enemy of God when we follow our own will rather than rather than goodness, than what he does good. So, Adam and Eve walked innocently in the garden, walked with God. Man walked with God in the garden. And then man sinned. He was sent forth from the garden. Here's the angel with the flaming sword sending forth Adam and Eve away from the garden. And that is because sin is not compatible with God's presence. Our God is a consuming fire. There is such a thing as death by holiness. And it's happened. We see it throughout Scripture, and I've seen it myself. It's been a long, many ways difficult road over the last 2 decades. And when people don't understand that God distances us for our own good, right? And he distances himself from us for our own good. Even Moses, when he was on the mountain, Moses is like, I can hear you, can I see you? And God says, you will see my back, but you cannot see my front. You will die. You cannot see it. So I will hide my front from you. Nevertheless, Moses was able to talk to him as a man speaks with a friend face to face as time went on. So we go through these periods of feasting and fasting. In this case, returning to the garden, right? So when we get into the great fast, where we get in the midweek, we get kind of these super strict rules, right? It's vegan if we're following it totally. And that should remind us of a return to the garden where there's no meat eaten, right? In paradise. There was no meat eaten. That would come later. And so our hearts are also to return back to that innocence that was lost when we fell those many years ago and compounded year after year, generation after generation. Adam and Eve committed suicide, right? And the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. And they're like, well, the serpent's like, no, God doesn't really mean it. Go ahead, eat it. Looks good. Now, yeah, that makes sense, right? We do this all the time. We can judge our foreparents for doing such things. But we do this all the time. God says, do not do this. It's deadly for you in an eternal sense. And we'll be like, well, maybe not. Right? Maybe not. We don't even need the devil whispering in our ears sometimes to do things that are deadly to our soul, to chip away at our soul. But this is a time to shave away sin. And to shave away sin, we also need to shave away indulgence. And so, yes, food, of course. Right. We're to shave away, though, also, as the spiritual fathers have taught us, all these tendencies, these ugliness of the soul. Being judgmental towards others, withholding forgiveness from others, grudges, entertaining perpetually lustful thoughts. Let's fast from all those things. But also, we need to fast from indulgence in other things, right? And yes, I am talking about our little computers. Hey, Father, my phone's all locked up for really bad stuff. Yeah, okay. So it's time to put away Candy Crush Saga to them, right? Really, it's time to start praying and reading and building ourselves up rather than some of the trash we do. Scrolling through social media hour after hour. Maybe cut off social media except for the things that are beneficial, such as obviously church, right? Or cut it out altogether for the coming week. I know some of you might be groaning right now, like, that's insane. Sorry. Whatever things are edifying, these things do. Right? And these are, you may not realize this, but doing good works, doing good alms, you know, the old phrase is charity begins in the home. It starts by maybe being better to the people you live with. Maybe being kinder, maybe being more patient. And it means actually reflecting on things you already do. The things you already do. Like, we're reminded right now of children, taking care of children. Like, that's a prayerful act. Right? Little kids sometimes go off like church bells, or maybe more like fire alarms, right? And sometimes, yeah, you got to take them out, and you know, but sometimes you sit with them calmly and try to deal with them, because you don't want to keep going out every time, right? Because that sets a bad precedent for the child. They need to know that church is a place for them. So the same thing in the home. But those things that you do in the home, you feed your children. Guess what you do? Last week's reading, you feed the hungry. Yep. You know what's nice? Hani and I feed each other. We actually fulfill already that command on one level. Because we physically feed each other. And then we spiritually feed each other too. You drink to the thirsty. You know, think back to the last time you were really, really thirsty. I mean, really, really, really parched and thirsty. Maybe you were on a hike and got lost or something like that. Give drink to the thirsty. Clothe the naked. Once again, every child in this parish has parents who are fulfilling this commandment. They go to work. Maybe one goes to work to buy the clothes, the other one puts on the clothes and takes off the clothes and washes the clothes and puts them back on over and over and over. So these things, I want you to realize you're already doing God's will. You're like, you don't have to, you know, look every day to go out and you know, figure out how to stop with every homeless person, right? And be like, maybe I should put them up in a night for a hotel. Well, maybe you should, but you know, that is not what God's talking about. He's talking about starting in the home and going outward. And yes, us as a church, we can do things better like that. Selected things, small, focused things. Not all over the place. You know, if we have 10 good ideas, guess what? We can probably only do about one in terms of outreach, and do it well. Because as we know, if we try to partition too much, it doesn't always work out so well. At work, you You have the most annoying coworkers, maybe, right? And I bet you, those of you who actually physically go to work, I bet you already you're thinking about the one person who you almost can't stand. Right now. But you know what? Your charitability towards them is not unseen by God. The Lord your God sees your good works, which are done in secret. Why are they done in secret? Because no one can see that you're forgiving them in your heart like 10 times a day, right? In order not to fire them or get them fired, in order not to, in some sense, sabotage them. Do these good things, continue to do them, and know that your Father sees in the secrets of your heart, your intentions, and what you're doing, and why you're doing them. No, indeed, let us return to the garden where we once walked with God, and He was in our presence. And His light shined, and we didn't even need coverings. We didn't need apologies. There was no hurt yet. Cain hadn't bashed Abel over the head. Yet at that point, no one had stolen from another person valuable things or personal things. No one had cheated on their spouse at that point. No one had hatched a plot against their neighbor to take what was theirs, be it a job or their property or a house. No one had done any of these things. Back in those days where there was no hurt, where we weren't hurting others and others were not hurting us. As in the second antiphon today, blessed is he whose help is the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord his God, who made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, who keeps the truth forever. It's a central focus. Keeps the truth forever. Let us seek to keep the truth in a duplicitous society. Let's be the ones who with God keep the truth, who executes justice for the oppressed. Look, we're called to do what we do in our local circumstances. And we can help. Come to someone's aid. Don't be a coward. If you see someone mistreated, and again at work or somewhere else, do something about it. Execute justice for the oppressed. I can't do anything about, someone who's being tried in Canada for speaking the wrong words about something, even though it's injustice. The people in Canada have to do that. They're called to do that. The faithful who are like us in Canada. But we can do what we can in our own local circumstance. Give food to the hungry. Yes, earlier, also, in the second antiphon, we're reminded that when our breath departs, we will return to our earth. We'll return to the earth, and on that very day, all our plans will perish. Let's start thinking of what's to come, my friends. Who knows when that is? Let us also think about how these services are what God is going to give us at the end of time. The life of the age to come, how these services and culminating in the Eucharist are God reaching in from eternity into time and us participating in that thing which hasn't even come yet. But He's letting us participate in it now, already before Him, because the eternal can reach into time and do such a thing. That's why the crucifixion isn't a thing of the past. It's an eternal thing which reaches into the present and reaches into this very liturgy, in the gospel, in the Eucharist. And that tomb of Christ, which we look forward to, the annual feast of the resurrection. But that tomb of Christ, that empty tomb, that radiant beams of energy that God has, that grace is already here present. It wasn't that it just happened 2,000 years ago. What happened 2,000 years ago was a historical thing, but it's the eternal thing which God injects into time in every church when 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, and we offer this Eucharist unto Him. Let us stand boldly before the throne of grace. Let us prepare ourselves properly, and let us be the people that God created us to be. Let us let Him form us, chisel us, maybe even refine us if we need it. Reshape, remold, that we may stand aright before the judgment seat of God and be told, well done, good and faithful servant. Inherit the kingdom that's been prepared for you from before the foundation of the world. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.